4 million years ago, on the vast plains of what we now call Africa, the ancestors of humankind lived in a world both dangerous and full of promise. They were not the upright, city-building creatures we know today, but beings whose bodies bore more resemblance to gorillas than to modern men. Their arms were long and muscular, designed for climbing the rough bark of ancient fig and acacia trees, while their faces were heavy-browed, their jaws strong from a life of chewing roots, leaves, and the occasional tough fruit. At dawn, a mist would cover the grasslands, and these proto-humans, small bands of families, would stir from nests built high in the branches. Safety lay in numbers and in the trees, for below, the ground was ruled by predators, saber-toothed cats, giant hyenas, and crocodiles that lurked near rivers. The early hominins did not yet speak as we do, but their guttural calls, chest beating, and sharp cries carried meaning. A warning grunt could alert the group to danger, a soft hoot might reassure an infant, and a loud bark could summon others for defense. They lived by instinct and the rhythm of the rising and setting sun. Theirs was a world where survival demanded constant movement, climbing, foraging, watching, and fleeing. Fire was still a mystery. Tools were nothing more than broken sticks or sharp stones stumbled upon, yet these small sparks of behavior hinted at what was to come. They were creatures at the edge of change. No longer simple apes, not yet human, but something in between, carrying within them the seeds of the future. Life for these gorilla-like humans was a delicate balance between hunger and fear. Food was not always abundant, and though their large molars allowed them to chew fibrous plants, they often ventured across the grasslands in search of berries, nuts, and insect-rich logs. Sometimes, fortune smiled in the form of a fallen animal carcass. With cautious bravery, they would approach, driving away vultures with sticks and rocks, tearing at the raw meat with their strong jaws. These moments were rare but precious, for the dense calories of flesh gave them the strength to endure long days. Waterholes were both life-giving and dangerous. The hominins learned to drink quickly before predators sensed their presence. Their groups were small, 10 to 15 individuals, led often by the strongest male or sometimes by the wisdom of an older female. Within these bands, bonds of family and protection grew. Mothers carried infants clinging tightly to their fur, while juveniles practiced climbing and play wrestling under the watchful eyes of adults. Nights were the most perilous. The dark belonged to prowling lions and leopards. To survive, the hominins built rough sleeping nests in trees, weaving branches into crude platforms. Sometimes they huddled together, seeking warmth and safety. Their senses were sharper than ours. Every rustle in the grass, every shift of wind was noticed. Though they lacked language as we know it, they were not without intelligence. They remembered paths to fruiting trees, seasonal cycles of rain, and the territories of rival groups. In their silence and struggle, the slow story of human endurance was being written, each generation carrying forward lessons that would one day blossom into culture. Among the gorilla-like humans of 4 million years ago, subtle changes were already stirring. Some began to spend more time on the ground, where walking upright, though clumsy and tiring at first, freed their hands to carry food, stones, or sticks. Though still largely tree-dwellers, these early hominins were explorers of both forest and savanna, moving between two worlds. Their curiosity was endless. A child might pick up a stone and strike it against another, producing a sharp edge that by chance cut a piece of bark or fruit. An adult might notice this and remember, using the stone again. These were not tools in the modern sense, but they were beginnings, flickers of thought that set them apart from their ape cousins. Social life grew more complex as well. They groomed each other, picking insects from fur not only for cleanliness but as a sign of trust and alliance. Conflicts sometimes erupted, especially over food or mates, but just as quickly, gestures of peace, an extended hand, a gentle touch, would restore harmony. Over time, small rituals took root. The way a group gathered to mourn a lost infant, or the way they celebrated the discovery of a rich fruit tree with excited hoots and pounding chests. Their brains were still small compared to ours, but larger than those of gorillas, holding within them the first sparks of memory, imagination, and planning. These sparks did not yet build fires or carve spears, but they illuminated a path forward, a path that would eventually lead to the great leap of humanity. For now, though, life remained raw and perilous, carried on the shoulders of creatures who were both ancient and new. Looking back from the vantage point of modern civilization, the gorilla-like humans of 4 million years ago seem almost alien, yet they were the foundation of everything that came after. Their struggles against predators, their endless search for food, their instinctive care for children. All of these were the raw material from which humanity was forged. Each cautious step onto the open grassland strengthened their legs. Each grasp of a stone or stick trained their hands. Each shared call or touch deepened the bonds that would one day become language and culture. Though they did not know it, they were preparing the way for fire, for tools, for shelters, for villages and cities. The instincts that drove them to protect their families, to explore beyond the forest edge, to adapt to hunger and fear, these instincts survive in us still. In their faces, heavy-browed and fierce, we can glimpse both the wildness of nature and the promise of intelligence. Their story is not just one of survival but of transformation, a long journey that would span millions of years. We owe them more than memory. We owe them our very existence. Without their endurance, there would be no us, no art, no science, no history. They lived and died in a harsh and unforgiving world, yet from their persistence, the spark of humanity was kindled. It is humbling to imagine them in the dawn mists of Africa, chest beating and calling to one another across the trees, not knowing that they were the first chapters of a story that would one day reach the stars. They were gorilla-like in body, but already human in destiny.